Hello there. Thank you everyone for joining. Welcome to this second event for SDG, INSEAD's SDG Week, the launch of INSEAD's new Student Impact Investing Club. My name is Chris Holcroft. I'm a INSEAD MBA 20D student and co-founder and now president of INSEAD's new Student Impact Investing Club. For those of you who had the pleasure to join us earlier with Sir Ronald Cohen, we are setting the stage for a series of different webinars as part of INSEAD's SDG Week, promoting social impact, impact investing, and business as a force for good. We're very excited and have the great pleasure of welcoming Kamal Hassan, founding partner of Loyal VC. So just a quick introduction before we kick off to who we have on the call. First of all, as I mentioned, we have the great pleasure of welcoming Kamal Hassan from Loyal VC, who is the founding partner. Kamal, if you'd like to quickly introduce yourself.
Sure.
We have Kamal. We have Borja Menendez, who is one of the co-founders of the club, who is in charge of the VP and is VP of the deal sourcing team.
Hi everyone.
Give us a wave. And finally, we have Charles, who is the third co-founder and VP of our due diligence team.
Hi all, pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So the order of play for today, just to kind of give you a quick overview, we'll have a brief presentation of the club and a few slides on the journey so far and the Loyal relationship. And then we'll be moving into a panel discussion with sort of Q&A session. So we welcome your questions, which will be recorded in the chat. And we have some pre-recorded questions from the student body and some alumni as well. So to kick us off, just to speak a little bit around the initial thinking behind the club and the main mission statement, so why we set out to found an impact investing club at INSEAD. And this is in the context of INSEAD as a sort of promoting and having this mantra of business as a force for good. We wanted to understand how we could encourage and action this mantra whilst being students here. And so the mission statement here you can see is sort of provide a real life learning opportunity for INSEAD students to invest for good in early stage social and environmental enterprises. We accepted and you know, it's always going to be the reality that not all students at INSEAD are going to go on to work either in impact investing or in social impact. But what we wanted to do was provide them with an experience and exposure to the world of social impact and impact investing more specifically, in the hope that they might go on to lead businesses and make decisions in the spirit of business for a force for good in the future. So if you think about the theory of change, about what we were trying to achieve, we have two main theories of change. The primary one being an educational theory of change around promoting experiences and exposure for students to then go on in their later lives to deliver impact in their work and their jobs in the future. And then second to that is the direct impact, if you like, of deploying capital to impact-driven social and environmental businesses. In terms of the journey so far, it's been more recently that students at INSEAD have started to have a real impact within the impact investing space. And the first sort of milestone was back in 2017 when our team who submitted to the Mint competition won first place for the first time. We've gathered a lot of momentum since then, and this year we had a team that submitted and won the ESA, Impact Investing Competition in Barcelona, and we placed second in the Mint competition this year. From there, the original sort of genesis of the club was through a collaboration between Endeavour, the social impact club at INSEAD, and IPEC, which is the VC and private equity club at INSEAD. Charles, Borja and myself kind of set out to raise either a fund or certainly a club that allowed students to have this investment experience. We went through an extensive benchmarking, looking at over 10 schools who have existing funds, including Stanford, Wharton, LBS, amongst others. And we spoke to over 75 key stakeholders from the faculty and INSEAD alumni community. And around July of last year, we kind of fortuitously stumbled across Kamal and Loyal VC. And after an extended sort of negotiation and back and forth over the summer, we are proud to announce that we have started a pilot partnership with them that started in September of this year. Just a quick overview of who is involved. So in the spirit of keeping the learning opportunity as broad and as deep as possible, we've managed to include 24 participants, active participants, that is, MBA students who are working alongside Loyal VC across 5 main teams. And we'll come to those kind of 5 teams and activities in due course. And we're also proud to announce that we have the endorsement and support of 3 faculty members, all sort of leaders in their field, with Vikas Agarwal, who leads the sort of P and VC teaching side of things. We have Lucy Tepler, affiliate professor of finance and sustainable finance, and our impact advisor in Jasjit Singh, who is a professor of strategy and impact at INSEAD. I'm going to pause there and pass over to Kamal to tell us a little bit more about the Loyal VC way of investing and a little bit more about the Loyal journey. So Kamal, over to you.
Perfect. So Loyal VC has got a very strong connections with INSEAD as a fund. We launched in 2018. Since then, we've built up a network of over 300 advisors. This is one of the secrets we offer companies, is access to a lot of very good people who can really support what they do. Half of those are INSEAD. We've got 5 venture partners working with us and 3 venture partners in training, of which 7 of the 8 of those are actually INSEAD alumni. So we've certainly been attracting a lot of INSEAD attention there. And my partner, Michael Kosick, and myself, both INSEAD MBA grads, are, of course, the general partners behind it. And fundamentally, Loyal is the fund that we wished we had available, both as entrepreneurs and investors. And both of us have deep experience, 20 plus years as both entrepreneurs and as angel investors with pretty good track records. So if you look a little bit at what the fund has done as returns so far, and Chris, do you want to move on to the next slide? We are fundamentally any fund is a financial instrument. You want to know how things do. So we do staged investing. And as you can see, the fund has had a 23% IRR since inception. That's based off of a sort of large number of stage 1 investments, which give us an 8% IRR, and then a smaller number of larger stage 2 investments, which are giving us a 50% IRR. And this was really the philosophy of Loyal, is to say, as an investor, it's really hard to make good decisions when you come into a company stage 1. However, once you get to know a company in detail, you can make much better decisions and be much better positioned to make money off your investments. So that's really what the strategy behind the fund is. So moving on to the next slide on the stages. This is our stage 1 investments. We've so far made investments in around 130 companies. Those are all sourced either from alumni of INSEAD or graduates of the Founder Institute Accelerator Program. You can see those investments are global. Doesn't surprise you. Founder Institute is the world's largest pre-seed accelerator and operates in almost as many countries as INSEAD does. You can see we've made investments so far in 34 countries. Those are diversified by sector and stage. The largest sector is fintech with 16%, but we have clean tech 8%, medical 8%, food ag tech 6%. So you can see we have a little bit of everything. The fund is diversified by gender. I mean, 33% women CEOs. It shouldn't need saying, except for the fact that in the VC industry as a whole, only 3% of companies have women CEOs, so we're unusual that way. And 45 of those ventures at the stage 1 are INSEAD graduates, so 36% of our portfolio. If If we now talk about the stage 2 investing, the next slide, you can see, I mean, the stage 2, we have a 51% IRR off of 23 investments. So this is starting to look like a big enough number that it looks like it isn't just a lucky fluke. Out of those, INSEAD has been overperforming. They're 36% of the stage 1, they're 45% of the portfolio at stage 2. So INSEAD grads always should be proud of that. But look, the reason we can make money on those is we have a knowledge and speed advantage because we have monthly calls and reports with every company. We average 11 months of diligence. So we know what's going on in the company. And yet if the company does well, we can invest literally in days. So lots of time to gather knowledge, very quick action. We have very strict internal rules to reduce bias. And that's one of the things we really realize the problem in follow-on investing is that investors can be very biased. So we do things like getting to know the company over time. So those initial biases you might have about whether you think someone's good or not can be ignored, and you can look at what they do, not what you think they're going to do. We pick the top third of deals at every stage. We do this to really address sort of force people to pick their favorite child, because you get to know a company, you get emotionally attached to it. So you really want to take that emotional attachment out of it. And there's a number of other sort of rules we put on ourselves. And then the third thing, we're called loyal VC for a reason. We really wanted to build loyalty up with our companies. We've had 100% acceptance rate at our stage 2 offers so far. And that's fundamentally, yes, we're an experienced team, we add value, but it's really the value added by our advisors. The entrepreneurs tell us over and over, we've got amazing advisors, you've made such a difference with our company, of course we'll take more money from you. Moving on to the next slide. Everything I've said so far hasn't really talked about a loyal as an impact fund. And in fact, we did not originally launch as an impact fund. We then did a survey of our companies to try to identify how many were impact companies. We thought it was about 30% of the portfolio. And we asked our companies, which, if any, of the UN Sustainable Development Goals do you address? And you can see the results here. 90% of the companies we got to respond to that survey, 90% said that they address one or more of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we went back and we looked at it and we said, well, how did this happen? And one of the things is you look at INSEAD, we're funding INSEAD alumni. Well, INSEAD is busy running around saying business is a force for good. Is it any surprise that INSEAD alumni are motivated by making a difference in the world? And then Founder Institute, I actually helped build the curriculum for that program. And in the first week, they say it's entrepreneurship with purpose is what Founder Institute's sort of mantra now is. But they're really, the first week we say, if you're going to build a business, solve a big problem in the world. How do you know what the biggest problems in the world are? Look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So you can see we have a wide range of sort of impact companies within the portfolio. And this has been something which has driven us to sort of go deeper and really get sort of involved in impact investing. So this is something which also fits very well with myself, my partners, etc. Thank you, Chris. Over to you.
Thanks, Kamal. So just moving now on to our final slide. So coming back to the 5 main activities, I'll pass over to Borja to give us a little bit of an explanation around the deal sourcing activity that students are involved in.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for attending this event. So I'm going to take on from here in order to briefly present the deal sourcing activity of the club. First and foremost, I have to say that this has turned out to be a great opportunity for us in the team to get access to some of the most innovative social entrepreneurs from the INSEAD community, from virtual reality for seniors to job platforms that train the most underprivileged, passing by agro-business. We are having a first-hand opportunity to see how commercially viable ventures are addressing social development causes and making them the core of their business. So the opportunity for students, I would say it's twofold, since not only do they get the opportunity to discuss these ventures with the founders, but also get exposure to real-life investment committees where our very challenging members are making them sweat in an environment that replicates very closely or an impact fund would be. So our sourcing process fits from several fronts. On one side, we are receiving leads from Loyal's network. On the other hand, there are all the INSEAD alumni-founded social ventures that through our own network, we identify and bring forward for analysis. And finally, we're working towards a collaboration with the INSEAD Entrepreneurship Club in order to rely on their networks and events as an additional source of leads. Our first investment committee took place 3 weeks ago, and students presented 4 investment opportunities to the investment committee, one of which was approved and will become the first investment of the club. I'll let Charles take on from here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Borja. So just to focus on the due diligence activity. So we essentially, the activity revolves around the follow-on investments to everything Borja described. So once the deal is through, the company is in the Loyal portfolio, it then goes through a 10-month monitoring phase whereby Loyal monitors the company and its traction, after which Loyal will make a decision as to whether to progress with a 200K investment, and that's where we step in. So our goal here is to provide a standardized VC approach to due diligence, the output being an investment memo whereby we provide a recommendation as to whether to proceed with the investment or not. And we do so with incredible guidance, both from Loyal and in particular from the faculty sponsors, not least Vikas Agarwal, who's really the expert on VC&P at INSEAD. And this is really valuable because, as you can imagine, some of us come in performing this activity with some impact VC due diligence experience from our prior lives, but a lot of people come in green. And so it's really important to have that guidance so that we can get to that standardized VC memo. And throughout the process, we dig deep into the company documents, the financials. We of course have regular touch points as well with the founders. And so far we've done this on one company. So we've been working on our first company, Boost Capital, a microfinance lender in Cambodia looking to expand throughout Southeast Asia. And it's been a terrific experience, terrific learning, real life learning experience, regularly talking to the founders, digging into the financials, into the documents of the company. And yeah, we're very excited to move on to our next one. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Charles. So just to speak a little bit more around the impact assessment activity. So the way that the impact assessment works, both with the club and with Loyal, is 2 main approaches that are put forward. So for portfolio companies, the students can engage in an impact accounting methodology whereby we try to reach a metric of dollars of impact delivered for every dollar of investment made. And that is a framework that Loyal have been working on developing in-house for some time, and which students are now going to be helping develop. And at the deal sourcing stage, we take a more conventional qualitative approach, benchmarked on the impact management project's 5 dimensions of impact. So that's looking primarily at the what, the who, the how much, contribution, and then risk. And that's looking sort of more forward looking. And the idea here is really to give students an experience of different methodologies and allow them to come to their own conclusions around the sort of the benefits and the downsides of the different approaches. With respect to portfolio management, here we have an opportunity to work alongside Loyal's 130 or so portfolio companies. So attending monthly sort of progress report calls with the founders to identify potential opportunities for follow-on investment, but also to provide advice, specifically if it's sector specific for some MBA students who have sector specific knowledge around how to problem solve and improve the operations of those portfolio companies. Finally, we also have a prospective fundraising team. So this is really kind of giving students the opportunity to get out in front of potential investors and to learn how to pitch and to fundraise. And gives students an opportunity well ahead of when they might normally expect to be able to do this type of work right now and under the guidance of Loyal. So again, a great opportunity for learning there that you wouldn't normally get through a sort of traditional curriculum at INSEAD or even any MBA. So we'll pause there, and I'll stop presenting, and we can move on to the next section of the discussion, which will be a panel discussion and Q&A with the four of us. We'll have Charles managing the questions, and I'll just moderate and sort of point to who is best placed to answer those questions. Once again, please do feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box, which is not the chat, but it's like the chat on Zoom.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, everyone. So we've had a few questions coming in from the audience. I think best to kick us off is the following question. So according to your investment thesis, Loyal's investment thesis, you only invest in the top third of firms at the second and then third stages. When do you close the door on a company and accept it does not qualify for follow-on investment?
So one of the things we think investors do too much of is we think they pass judgment on companies too quickly. They sort of speak as if they know what the future is. And honestly, we don't know what the future is. I mean, you look like companies like an Airbnb, for instance, who spent many months, I think it was like an 18+ month period when it really looked like it was a crazy idea until they figured out all the details of their business. So we actually never close the door on a company for the second stage. We stay in touch with them, we support them, we give them a chance to prove themselves. If the entrepreneur still thinks there's enough to the business that they should dedicate their life to solving that, then we'll be there and we'll give them a chance to prove that they can succeed. If they don't, we'll always be there waiting, supporting, and watching, but we don't want to pass judgment and say, you failed, you won't succeed, because we don't know what the future holds.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. Another question that's come in is how the work of students is bringing additional value to Loyal's investment process.
So Loyal is doing this. Loyal is really doing this to try to support INSEAD. INSEAD has done a lot for us. As you can tell, I mean, we've got this amazing network of INSEAD alumni. I didn't mention it, but in terms of the investors in the fund, by number, not by dollars, about 60% of the investors in the fund are INSEAD grads. So we've got a lot of sort of gratitude for what INSEAD has done for us. And Michael and myself, I mean, just the whole team is gratitude for everything that INSEAD gave our lives. So we're really doing this to give the chance to students to support. We're trying to build up a structure whereby we could do ourselves what the students are doing, but it sort of works out to a net neutral where it takes us time to work with and train the students, and the students in return get good work. But we're really trying to make sure students get real work. And luckily, I mean, for instance, on the deal sourcing, INSEAD students are actually helping us do deal sourcing of deals run by INSEAD alumni. INSEAD alumni are very open and willing to have students step in to take part in that process. So it's real life experience. It's probably net neutral for us in terms of the time of the student versus the time we take to support them. But I mean, honestly, it's just part of giving back to INSEAD.
Interesting. There are quite a few questions coming in with regard to impact.
Yes.
And I suppose, so Loyal has a very interesting investment model, but strictly speaking, it's not necessarily impact first. How do you as a club maintain a strict focus on impact in the partnership with Loyal?
Borja, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, please go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I can take that one. Thank you guys. So from the deal sourcing team perspective, we are generating an independent analysis on the potentiality of the companies we screen on both commercial and impact aspects. So we're working in close collaboration with the impact assessment team, and the person from that team will always join our conversations with the entrepreneurs and generating from their reports on the impact that we believe the company is making. This input brings us a double layer of filter of impact. So first, after the initial analysis of the company, they will advise us on whether to present the company in the IC or not. And secondly, they take an active role in the investment committee by preparing the impact analysis of the investment memos, and so participating in the conversation and the criteria over which the votation will be made. And that's on our side. I guess maybe Kamal wants to complement that.
Sure. So one comment to make on impact is it's very difficult to get a business through that early stage. I mean, often things don't go as planned. Almost always they don't go as planned. And you have to work very hard at it. And one of the things which we've seen is that entrepreneurs need a reason to do what they're doing above and beyond making money. If it's just making money, you will give up when times get tough. And the thing is, impact entrepreneurs are motivated by something above and beyond the money. They really want to make a difference. That gives them that extra motivation, that extra push, which makes it more likely that they'll fight through the challenges and actually make it out the other side with a successful business.
Yeah, interesting. I guess just to follow on from that. So there's a question here regarding Loyal's in-house impact methodology. I was wondering if you could touch a bit upon that, and then maybe from the club's perspective, we could talk a bit about how we define impact and how and whether how we're integrating that within the club's activities as well.
So we've had a series of interns from INSEAD working with us since the summer of 2019. And one of the things, I mean, as we started to realize the degree of impact our companies had, we said, great, well, let's start to measure the impact. And what we discovered when we looked at the different impact measures out there is we really found that the impact measures were, and I'm going to exaggerate, many people use them, but from our point of view as investors, they looked like feel-good box checking exercises. They did not look like they were really measuring the impact. And we had our entrepreneurs who were telling us stories about their impact, which just didn't make sense. I mean, many of our entrepreneurs don't present themselves as being an impact business. We have an INSEAD entrepreneur makes organic, gluten-free Asian sauces. Daphne is called Mikala Foods. And she gets these made in a factory in Thailand by Burmese refugee women, illiterate. She teaches them using symbolic materials to actually work in her factory. So we're looking at stories like this and saying, great, this is a wonderful story, but how do you compare that to someone who's doing microfinance in Cambodia? How do you evaluate? Because our job as an investor is to evaluate different opportunities. So we said, look, the only way to do that is to actually reduce impact to a common scale, which is dollars, and then say, what is the environmental impact? It's tons of CO2 and other greenhouse gases, but again, that can be reduced to dollars. What is the positive and negative dollar impact of what they're doing, both environmentally and socially? So this is what we've been working on. We realized last summer we needed to do it. There are a few different groups out there in the world who are doing this. I see there's a question about cooperation. I mean, we love to share everything we do. We look forward 10 years and say 10 years from now, everyone's financial statements for every company is going to include a dollar statement of environmental impact, a dollar statement of social impact. That is something society will demand. And we're just saying that's 10 years ahead. We're going to be pioneers in it. We'll be one of the first people to adopt it so we can make good investment decisions that compare opportunities across different industries.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. I think this the second part of the question, and I see a couple more coming in here, is really how the club is tying in with that. So maybe just to spell it out a bit more. So how are you as a club managing the introduction of your own impact thesis into the investment criteria of the club?
Borja, do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, thank you very much again. So Basically, that's a good question, and we're on the process to really get to it. But as Chris mentioned earlier, the impact assessment team, they're working both towards helping Loyal develop their impact accounting framework and like at least get a glimpse of how it can work or not, but also working on a simplified version of the impact management projects framework, which is an initiative led by Mrs. Clara Barbie, an INSEAD alumni as well. Members of the team have been putting together a way to look at all the companies we are going to analyze. Then, once we have the conversations with the companies, we establish the KPIs and metrics that will allow us to assess the impact achieved by the company on a standalone basis. It's the representation of how companies can do good from different perspectives. So it's difficult to make them comparable, but it's what we are trying to do is see if them, like their own activities generate impact. And if it's lockstep, the better, but also if there's a potentiality to invest in a company for good without having the proper financial returns, we'll also like get a learning experience from that.
Interesting. And there's a question here about the stage of the company and why choose early stage only? So what about catalyzing impact by investing in SMEs that, you know, apparently often constitute more than 90% of national economies? So why the focus on the earlier stage companies?
So Loyal actually has fairly open criteria. So we've invested in companies which are later stage as well as early stage. It really comes down to if the entrepreneur is still at a stage where they're interested. In terms of SMEs, we have got a couple of investments in the fund. I mean, I mentioned we've actually done a follow-on investment in Makala Foods. Many VCs would look at a deal which says, okay, they're making organic Asian pastes. I'm not sure this is going to be a billion-dollar business. The way our math runs, you can make very good returns off a $200,000 investment from a company which is just a good, steady SME. So we are able to do those. Most of the deals we see are companies who have larger ambitions. And remember, we source all of our deals from either INSEAD alumni or Founder Institute graduates. And both of those programs are programs where people tend to have larger ambitions than having a modest SME. But we will look at either.
Thanks. And then maybe Chris, from a club perspective, is there anything you wanted to add there? Or?
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier on, I think when we originally came to the conclusion or in the vision of what we were trying to build, we had in mind raising a pool of capital ourselves. And I think given the constraints around the quantums of money that we would be able to raise, we always looked at early stage business as the first step, just because when you're investing 30 or 40K as a ticket size, the later the stage of the company, the more insignificant and the harder it actually becomes to get on the cap table with that size of investment. And so we felt as though the impact that we could have as a student club in the first instances when we were still starting off is better at the early stage. And there's also a piece to kind of benchmark against, which is the Mint competition. So the Mint competition focuses on early stage into SME kind of stage businesses. And the track record of INSEAD students in that competition gave us confidence that we would be able to perform and add value in a similar type of exercise.
Interesting. Thanks a lot for Chris. And then there's some questions a bit more related to the club itself. So what, as a club, are we looking for in students looking to join the fund? So what will the roles be like, and what kind of backgrounds, I suppose, are we looking for in terms of admitting students to the club?
Sure, I can take that one as well, given we've just gone through the process. So as of yesterday, I think we just confirmed the new 21J cohort who will be taking over the reins of the club. To an earlier point around diversity in the club, we're also pleased to announce that that leadership team is 50% female, with a female president. But also beyond that, we want to make this an educational opportunity for all students, and so we don't look for previous experience. That being said, we recognize the value that students can have in terms of teaching their own peers. And so we try to fill 30 to 40% of the places within the fund, and that's across all teams, with people who have prior experience. And that is based on the sort of peer learning basis, but also ultimately the efficacy and efficiency of the final product that we're producing, which obviously real investment decisions are being made off of. So we need to maintain learning, but also quality at the same time.
Yeah, thanks. And I can't stress that enough in terms of even in the activity I'm running, we have a couple people who definitely have prior experience in due diligence. But ultimately, this is a learning experience for students that come in and that might not have that prior experience. And that's why we have a regular touch point with Loyal, with the faculty sponsors. And so it's sort of about finding that balance, I'd say. Another question focused on the club's activities. So specifically with regard to deal sourcing, what companies have successfully passed the deal sourcing IC? And why or why not? How was that process run?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Charles. So we just ran our first investment committee 3 weeks ago, and out of the 4 companies that were presented in it, only one of them received a clear positive support from the members. It's a venture addressing elderly care. In general terms, the execution of the deal hasn't been completed yet, and that's why I cannot get more in depth into it. But in general, I would say that this company complied positively with the double focus that we're trying to assess, so a credible commercial viability for the project, backed by an experienced management team, along with an impact mission that was clearly identifiable and provable, and whose evolution we'll be able to analyze. Another 2 of them received partial support, and the reason for it was mostly that they didn't comply as much with our impact screening, so to say. And yeah, for the following investment committee, which will take place next week, we also have another 4 companies, and hopefully we'll have another onboardings to the fund.
And we're going to do one of the 2 companies which wasn't seen as enough impact. We're going to be doing it anyway. So we'll be doing 2 of those 4 deals.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. There's also a question on the due diligence piece, so I can take that on. So the company we've been looking at, Boost Capital, is so a micro lending digital platform. They both lend B2C, so off their own books, based out domestic market is Cambodia. They also have a B2B2C service, so they provide a tech platform for major traditional MFIs in Cambodia, and potentially scaling elsewhere in Southeast Asia. The question is, what do you like about it, and some reservations you might have. So for me, I think what we found is that the market is clearly growing and fragmented. Boost has a great team, a great product. The team has extensive experience in the region, and they already have solid traction, and they've proven to be resilient during these during these COVID times. Potentially a reservation might be that I guess the operational feasibility as they scale, collecting some of these loans might become complicated, but this is all something we're looking into, and actually over the coming days we'll be presenting our findings and recommendations to Loyal, which is really exciting. So moving on from that, another question, I guess, more geared towards Loyal. So given the unique investment model at Loyal, how do other investors view the Loyal model, and how might that impact the founder?
One of the things which when we initially launched, a number of people were worried, well, is there going to be negative signaling if Loyal doesn't follow on in a company? Does that mean other investors are going to wait to follow Loyal? And what we found in reality from our portfolio is that that has never happened so far that we've been aware of. We have probably at least a third of our initial investments where these companies have received follow-on investment from other VCs, just not from us. And they're very good companies. I mean, they're companies that in a sort of, if we didn't have the stack ranking, which forces us to only do the top third, we would have invested in them without question. But our internal rules and presumably what's driving our returns is the fact that we say only the top third. So yeah, I mean, honestly, there's two kinds of investors out there. There's lead investors and there's followers. Lead investors don't care if Loyal's doing an investment or not, because they're saying, I'm a lead, I'll figure out for myself if this is a good deal. And follow-on investors say, well, who's the lead? And sure, they'll wait for Loyal to lead. And if Loyal doesn't lead, well, the company can't get an investment, but anyone can be a lead investor. So they're just going to sit in the sidelines till any lead investor shows up. So it's actually been surprising how it hasn't mattered, how it really hasn't mattered. I mean, either you're an investor, you don't care about other people's opinion, you think independently, or you just wait and you follow what everyone else does.
Interesting. And there's a question as well, and I guess this sort of related. I mean, do you view in any way the VC model to be incompatible with impact? I mean, of course, I imagine not, but where does that, where do you draw the line then? How would you respond to someone who might say that the returns that VC looks for as quickly as possible might not be compatible with an impact lens, investing lens?
So fundamentally, investors are looking for financial returns. That's what they're looking for, and there are many different ways of getting those financial returns. Venture capital, it's a longer conversation. We actually did a paper on this in Institutional Investor magazine recently with Claudia Zeisberger, which I can probably post in the chat. But the VCs pride themselves on being able to pick winners. And there's a small number of big winners, and most VCs do a small portfolio and they promise investors they'll find a big winner, and the actual truth is sometimes they do. I mean, statistically, a few of them do and they look like geniuses, and the others don't. They look like they're not geniuses. But fundamentally, I mean, if you do large number of VC investments, then VC returns get very predictable. And the fact that you have big winners is sort of an outlier, which you want to sort of wrap into your big number of deals. So yeah, I think the VC model, there's many different ways of thinking about the VC model. And I think the reliance of, oh, I'm going to hit a home run is a mistake, because investors hit home runs statistically about as often as home runs show up. There's no real correlation to be seen. And I'm probably saying things which are very controversial to those who have experienced in ventures, so I probably better shut my mouth now.
Thanks, Kamal. No, I think you're on point with that. Thank you. I think so. Perhaps one final question here, and it refers to more the future and the next steps. But what next steps for the club and long-term vision of the collaboration do you have in mind with Loyal?
Yeah, so I can take that one to round things off. I think you know, the main thing that we want is to ensure that this relationship and this club is set up for the long term, and that the partnership is long-standing and kind of sits at an institutional level. And you know, there are plenty of different opportunities and visions that we might want to go after, with including raising capital ourselves that would either sit within the Loyal structure or more as a sort of venture philanthropy type model. But really the most important thing is continuity and the long-term legacy to ensure that students in future cohorts get the same opportunity that we've managed to get this year with Kamal and Michael Kosick. And so we're going to be focusing on the continuity plan, ensuring that the handovers are really robust, and constantly improving each activity, taking on the feedback both from the Loyal side, but also from our faculty advisors and the founders who we're working with as well. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, and we're gonna have to wrap up there. I just wanted to thank everyone again for joining today, and to thank our speakers, to thank you, Kamal, for taking the time, Charles, Borja, thank you. And to thank the sponsors of the event as well, Accenture Strategy, and to raise attention around some of the next events this week in the SDG schedule. So we've got 5 more events after today, covering everything from equity, inclusion, climate action, and sort of impact entrepreneurship as well. So do please go onto the SDG website and sign up. And finally, just a parting note of thanks to the operational team who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this week happen. So thank you to all of you, and thank you again to everyone who's joined. Goodbye and stay healthy.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.